I have no idea why, but of course I cut out during the stream. Of course. Because I can't have nice things, apparently. Okay, anyway, as I was trying to talk about earlier before the stream cut out, again, hopefully it doesn't do that, because that's part of the reason why I started getting back to 9:30 streams, is because I thought that the cause of why I kept cutting out would be asleep by now, but apparently it's not. Maybe it's just technology being technology. Anyway, so I was talking about PlayStation stars and stuff. So PlayStation stars, we all know about the digital collectibles, but beyond that, you can also redeem the points to get PlayStation stars themed items in homes, so like furniture, clothing, maybe a locomotion item, stuff like that. Anyway, the next thing, an in-game currency. As I said before, this is strictly optional, as I understand that Sony is a business, so they must make revenue somehow. So they could either A, make the virtual currency accessible to players to where they can earn it through normal gameplay, but they could also let people buy it, like, if they want to, you don't have to. B, the currency would strictly be purchasable and nothing else. Or C, they will negate that and not have a virtual currency and stick to the same monetization model they had in the original home. Either way, I'm perfectly fine with either of those because you don't need to buy stuff in home. You just simply have to play it and enjoy it. 7. Cross promotion with other companies and people. I have a very, very, very good example for this. So, if y'all don't know, it was recently announced that the Game Awards is happening. I mean, who would have guessed, right? December 8th, this year. And I should say it's a Thursday, so that's good. So what I mean for the Game Awards, so this would be called an event space. So it's a temporarily available public space that people can visit for a specified amount of for a specific amount of time until the real life event that is regarding that event space ends, and people could probably visit for another day or two to watch reruns of it, and then it'll be gone. But I have written here, such an example would, again, be a special event space for the Game Awards. It would have minigames and quests, as well as a voting booth for players to vote just like you would on the actual website. So, like, you could vote for GOTY, you could vote for the best action game, you could vote for all that stuff. Next, enhanced security. Now, this is actually the last part of the wish list portion of this list. Enhanced security. So, it should be noted that since PlayStation Home was a beta, betas aren't really known for their tight security because, you know, it's a beta, it's a work in progress, so it's not going to run perfectly, and of course there might be people that are looking to cause issues, if you know what I mean. But, not only that, but not every player that you met was a nice person. Like, there might be someone who is a bully. Hell, I used to be that way. Like, I used to be a bit of a dick sometimes, a bit of a weirdo, but I've changed since then. A lot. But they could have an enhanced security system where it would detect if someone's trying to cheat in a minigame or trying to be a jerk to someone, you know, stuff like that. Expectations. Now, in this part, I'm talking about what we can expect from this. And the first thing I want to get off my chest is, how is this game going to perform? I'm not talking about performance in terms of like how many people are going to be playing or people are going to be interested. I'm talking about performance in terms of like gameplay. You know, like how is it going to run on the hardware? And then it hit me. So, with a wide majority of games nowadays on the next-gen hardware that we have, like Xbox and PlayStation, you can freely choose between whichever graphics settings that you want. So, for example, again, an example I'm going to throw out, Grand Theft Auto 5 and online. Or, you know, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, to name a few. You can switch graphics settings where you could have better visual clarity, where you could have like features such as ray tracing but with a lower frame rate, or you could sacrifice the frame rate. You could sacrifice the graphical quality, so you could either have minimized ray tracing or no ray tracing with a higher frame rate. But this is the thing I'm thinking of. And I have it in parentheses here. While having multiple graphics options does sound nice, it'd be best if the game ran at a 60 FPS, like a consistent FPS of 60 with whichever the resolution that your TV runs on. So for me, it's 1080p. But what I'm trying to say is, think of it sort of like how Astro's Playroom, it doesn't have graphics settings that you could choose, it's just one solid graphics setting that's already set on, you can't change it, but the game already looks beautiful to begin with. But, that again is up to Sony, you know. Yeah, so, I'm not saying they have to do that, but it would be nice. Of course, they could also have the multiple graphics settings, but I don't know how that would run in terms of, like, if it would affect other people's gameplay. The second thing, and I'm about to talk about GTA Online again, but I have good reason for it, dynamic updates. Now, you're probably thinking, dynamic updates, what the hell is that? So, you're probably wondering, dynamic updates, what does that mean? So typically, when you think of a game updating, you think of having to waiting for it to download a new update and all that other stuff. And home could still do that for like maybe performance patches and all this other stuff. And that's fine. That's perfectly reasonable. That's totally expected. They don't have to do it very often. Maybe maybe every once in a while to make sure that the game runs well and has its security up to snuff. But a dynamic update is different. So, an example of what I mean by a dynamic update would be looking no further than tunables. So, you know, added to the game in the background and ready to go by the time it's implemented. So, a good example of this in terms of PlayStation Home would be how they every single week would have new items being added to PlayStation Home and some new spaces and stuff. But what I mean by this is, as I said, Home had new items all the time, but the only time it would ever need to update was every once in a while, like every several months probably, and that was only to make sure that the performance was good. You know, like making sure the performance is stable and stuff. Much like, you know, whenever you get a new update for your system. Anyway, the next thing. This is a no-brainer. I literally just said that, and I look over at my notes, and it literally says, "This is a no-brainer." That's my favorite thing to say, apparently. It's been long rumored that PlayStation Home should make a comeback. That should it make a comeback, it'll be this year. Let me explain. So, the Soho engine that I've talked about, at least for the US side of things, it is currently in the process of its opposition period. So, it's during this 30-day period that people could oppose the trademarks process of being registered, and they would have to give their reasoning. Now, as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any oppositions at all, which is good, because of the fact that I would like to bring something up. So, what happens after an opposition period, huh? Well, according to the trademark company right here. So, it says here, provided no one opposes the registration of your trademark if you filed a use-based application, i.e. your trademark was in use when the application was filed, approximately 4 to 6 weeks after the 30-day opposition period ends, your trademark will register and you'll get a thing. If, however, you filed an intent to use application, you will receive what is known as a notice of allowance. It's basically a little thing that says, yeah, whenever you start using this, you just need to let us know and we'll register it. So, that's it. The reason why that's important is because the opposition period for the Soho engine, at least for the US, ends on September 2nd. I should also mention this website has not updated this at all. Alter is where you want to go. So it says here, publish for opposition and all that other stuff. So after the opposition period is the registration. So I could see this going two ways. Either it's going to be a few weeks before it's actually trademarked, or it'll probably be trademarked soon after. And I think that's going to happen. And you know what? Considering the timing of all this, like, quite literally, the 30-day opposition period ends on September 2nd. No joke. September 2nd. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. The same day as we will supposedly be hearing about the showcase. And I feel like we're probably going to be getting more than just the announcement for a showcase. Maybe. Don't quote me on that. But what I am trying to say, however, is that it is likely, because of all this, and I'll further explain why I think a 2022 release of PlayStation Home is gonna happen. I can't say when. I'm not saying I'm an insider, because I'm not. I'm just saying I can't say when, because I don't know when. It could be any given moment. It'll have to be after this opposition period, though. Anyway. What's funny is in the notes I also said that just before the showcase, or we could get it after the showcase, like directly after. It's all up to Sony, but I'll talk in a little while about all the evidence that Home is coming back, as well as why I personally think it's coming out this year. Because it's very, very important that I talk about that. Also, sorry about the voice cracks. It's just, again, allergies have kicked my ass 6 ways to Sunday. Anyway, the fourth thing on this list is consistent support from Sony. So, I should say that PlayStation Home's run on PS3 started to dwindle when the PS4 was starting to become a thing, because, you know, the PS4 came out in November of 2013. God, that was a long time ago. It's about to be 10 years old next year. Yeah, so, because of the PS4 coming out, eventually the support for Home started to dwindle until eventually the service closed down its beta. Why is this important? Well, it's because of the fact that Sony is starting to do the same thing with the PS4, where eventually they're just going to drop the PS4 to where it's like very little stuff will be coming out for that, except maybe smaller games. With that being said, because, and I will say this right here. This was something that I had come to realize. PlayStation Home closed down about 2.5 years after the PS4 came out, because Home still got some stuff throughout 2014, and then 2015 it didn't get a thing because, you know, it ended support and ended service in the end of March of 2015. That being said, yeah, it was like a year and a half after Home came out, or no, not, the PS4 came out. Also, fun fact, I got my PS4 in 2014. Yeah, anyway, so, yeah, now that the PS5 is around and they're starting to shift their focus to PS5, that means that they could focus on Home a lot more consistently, where it's like they'll regularly check up on it, issue updates that they need to, stuff like that. Anyway, the fifth thing in my expectations list: a mixture of returning, new, and revamped spaces. By returning spaces, I mean spaces that we've come to know and love that need no further burps, no further renovations or anything, or at the very least, very few renovations. So, a good example would be Pier Park. Now, Pier Park, I'll also put in the revamped spaces, which I'll get to that in a moment. Actually, no, not Pier Park. The Hub. The Hub doesn't really need anything new. Maybe like the dance floor area could be a little bit bigger. You could have staircases on both sides of the area where you could. There could be like new public spaces or new private spaces or stuff like that. But that could also mean new spaces from third-party partners. So, again, for example, the Diamond Casino and Resort in PlayStation Home being based on the Diamond Casino and Resort in GTA Online. Of course, it would have its own gameplay differences, but I digress. Finally, the last thing on expectations: PlayStation Plus integration. Now, that was already a thing in the original home, where you could get free items and discounts and stuff. They could expand on that, and of course there was also a nightclub that you could access called X7. I actually never got to go in there because I didn't have Plus until I got the PS4. Well, a little after, but you know. So I should say that Home will still be a free-to-play game. That is a no-brainer. I keep saying that like I'm some kind of person talking to babbling idiots. I know none of y'all are idiots. Y'all are awesome. But I just like saying this is a no-brainer as like a way of saying, yeah, I think people understand. But Home is a free-to-play game, and it still will be, or still will be, you know. But Plus will allow you to get free items and stuff, but should they decide to have a virtual currency system that you can earn just by playing, you could get a bonus amount from that. So, yeah. Anyway, how about we get to the last part of the list? I'm sorry, the second to last part of the list. Evidence of its return. Soho Engine. Now, I know this is... Actually, no. The first thing is just the numerous trademark renewals. Now, what I mean by this is there are technically 3 trademarks that have to do with PlayStation Home. We have the main trademark, which is just the name of the service. There's no image associated with it. It's just PlayStation Home. And it's also been updated every once in a while with the last update for PlayStation Home's main trademark. Again, no images associated with it. It's just the name of the service. The last time that ever got updated was October of last year. There are 2 other trademarks, though. One of them just having the home logo. Oh my gosh, why am I so tired? Oh, right, because it's 10:37. I hope I sleep like a freaking baby tonight. Anyway. There's another trademark for PlayStation Home, which is a version of the logo with Home's name underneath it. Just Home. Not PlayStation Home, just Home. The last time that got updated, I believe, was the 15th of June. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So... there's all that. So we have the updates to the trademarks. We have the second thing, which I was about to talk about as the first thing. Soho Engine. Why is Soho Engine so important? Well, for one, it's coming directly from PlayStation 1 Studio because, you know, Soho, that's where they're from. And still, why is that important? The Soho Engine not only has been trademarked in the US, but it's also been trademarked in Canada, Australia, and numerous other territories around the world. Coincidentally, PlayStation Home itself had numerous different versions depending on which region you played in. So for example, you would have the North American region, which is for US and Canada. You would have Japan, you would have Asia, which is for Hong Kong and other parts of China and all that other stuff. And you would have EU. With the Soho Engine being trademarked in the various locations that it's been trademarked in, it could have more regional versions. So, for example, they could have a South American version. They could have a Australian version. They could have, of course, Japanese. It makes sense. And of course, it was trademarked in Canada as well, which is interesting because of the fact that, that would imply that it has its own Canadian regional version. But what I'm trying to get at is because Sohonjin is being trademarked in these different territories, that would imply that PlayStation Home, should it be coming back, would have its own versions as well. The third thing. Now, I couldn't exactly find the actual interview where this was talked about, but I do believe it, and I'll explain why. So, as you all know, if you're a PlayStation Home aficionado like myself, who played PlayStation Home during its beta, you will no doubt know about Atom Republic and what was originally called Kovac, which is now rebranded to Zalox Studios as of several years ago. The reason why I bring those people up is because alongside a few other developers for PlayStation Home that had, minigames inside PlayStation Home and some items in PlayStation Home, other companies such as Digital Leisure and Hellfire Games, stuff like that, they've all gone on to make their own games as spiritual successors to PlayStation Home in various ways. For example, Atom Universe is trying to be a spiritual successor in the most direct way possible, which is just its various similarities. It sucks. Nebula Realms, Zalox Studios, sucks. Digital Leisures with Four Kings Casino and Slots. It's actually very good, but I digress. Big City Stories by Hellfire Games hasn't gotten an update in several years since it first came out. I mean, not since it first came out, it was like a year or two after it came out and they stopped doing stuff for it. Because the last time Hellfire Games ever made a post about Big City Stories was it was literally 2019, so a few months before the pandemic started. Why do I bring all those people up, you may ask? Well, again, I couldn't find the interview that talked about this exactly, but I'll explain why I do believe that there was at one point an interview that might have been wiped off the internet. So there was an interview with Tengai shortly before Atom Universe was set to come out. And Tengai mentioned that when it was told to Sony that the people that were making content were wanting to make their own virtual world style games like Home, essentially, Home was, it was on its last legs on PS3, all that stuff. Sony had those developers, after they had mentioned what they had plans on, they had them sign a contract, an agreement, that mentioned that when their games are around, they can't be in any direct competition with PlayStation Home. Now, it's important to note that by the time this agreement was signed, Home was already closed. And those games were already well on their way of being close to being finished and whatnot. Why is this important? It's because of the fact that to be in direct competition with something would have to be in the same marketplace, the same platform, the same ideal things of what you would do in that game. So, for example, Call of Duty and Battlefield. Two similar games. Same gameplay style. Although Battlefield is more emphasized on destruction and large-scale maps. But nonetheless, the reason why I bring that up is because those games are technically direct competitors because they're all on the same platforms as one another and they all try to do the same things as one another. with varying results. But why is this important for why they're told, hey, you can't be in direct competition with this? It's because Sony knew that Home wouldn't come out on PS4, and I'll explain why exactly that is so important. Why Sony skipped PS4, and why the timing of that is so important. So it's important to note, as I said earlier, that PlayStation Home closed down at the very end of March 2015. It's also important to note that about a day after the PS4 launched was when the pre-production stages of the PS5 started. So Sony was already planning on making a PS5 almost the day after the PS4 came out. It's also important to note that by 2015, Sony started development of that console because they already had the groundwork laid out. SSD minimizes load times to near instantaneous processes. Ray tracing makes games look beautiful. Tempest 3D audio, self-explanatory. It makes it to where you can hear stuff from any given direction. Like up, down, left, right, sideways, diagonal, trapezoid, whatever. Anyway, all this other stuff, including the DualSense and all that other stuff. Sony had the idea during that development cycle of the PS5 that Home would be a perfect fit for the PS5 because of all the things that I'm about to talk about later. So why is this important, and how does it relate to those games I mentioned, like Atom Universe, Nebula Realms, and all that other stuff, being in direct competition with PlayStation Home? Did you ever notice how any of those games were never ported over to PS5 as a PS5 enhanced game? That's right. All of those games are still PS4 games. You can still technically play them on PS5 through backwards compatibility, but that's not the same as them being a PS5 native game, meaning it was made specifically for that console. And as I mentioned earlier, that would mean that if they were to have been brought over to PS5 as a PS5 game, they would be in direct competition. You see where I'm getting with this? Now it makes sense why, even though I couldn't find the interview that talked about this all makes sense. Because Sony doesn't want other people to try and dethrone their platform, like their social gaming platform, once it comes back out. And again, just to reiterate, PlayStation 5 had been in development in 2015, the same year PlayStation Home closed down. And if you remember, Home was in a beta. It was always changing. There was always stuff being added to it, so it wasn't technically a finished product. But in this new version of PlayStation Home, I should say that it will be a finished game in terms of like all the features and stuff. But in terms of like content that's being added, by first party and third party, that's always going to change. So it's not going to be a beta, but it will have new stuff all the time. Now, here's the thing. PS5 development started 2015. Console came out 5 years later in 2020. A year we all want to forget, except for a few good things, like, the consoles. I'm pointing at my PS5 right now, if you couldn't tell. But other than that year was fucking terrible. And of course, here we are about 2 years later, and here we are talking about PlayStation Home. Why is this important? PS3 came out 2006. PS Home came out 2008. Now, granted, it was originally planned for a release in 2000. Like, it was originally planned to release earlier in the year than it initially did because PlayStation Home came out December of that year in 2008. But it was originally planned for like an earlier release window, but it had to be delayed, and we had, they had testing and stuff, and then, it's another story in and of itself. But I feel like since it's been so long that it's about time. And just to really drive home this point, Home closed down in 2015. Now you're probably wondering, well, what about the trademarks? The earliest I could find was that the two trademarks that had the logos were both renewed at the very beginning of 2017. That's January 11th. So it's possible that right around that time was whenever a new PlayStation Home was being developed in secrecy, and the only people who know about it, of course, are Sony and all the other people who were, being tight-lipped about the project, so they won't tell us until they're ready. They won't bring it out until they're ready. So all we need to do is wait and see. Anyway, so, yeah. My point being, those developers who went on to make their own games, their games aren't on PS5. I mean, they are technically through backwards compatibility, but that's different from those games being actual PS5 games. Because a good example of an actual PS5 game would be something like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. That was made specifically for that system. So, yeah. Anyway, now down to the fourth thing about the evidence is, as I said earlier, Sony very much had the idea that Home, like, it was okay on the PS3, but it had a whole lot of limitations. Like, the loading times were abysmal. We had the fact that any new spaces that you wanted to go to, or if there was a space that was updated at some point, you would have to download it. And the problem with that is you could really bog down the system's hard drive by doing that. All of that and more will be pretty much non-existent on the PS5 because of its better system architecture. So, like, be pretty much instantaneous. You would have you not needing to download spaces anymore. So, like, if you wanted to go to a space you had never been to, you could just go there like that. Like, just whoop, zip, you're there. And of course, it'll run perfectly well on the system, unlike the PS3 version, which it varied in frame rate. Anyway, the inclusion of Home's logo in Astro's Playroom. A common trend that I saw with the majority of PlayStation properties is that they were included as either Easter eggs or collectible objects in the Labo. Something I noticed is that Sony's been steadily doing new things with those IPs or even reviving them. A good example. Wait, was there? Yeah, so technically there is a reference to Twisted Metal, but from what I've gathered, there wasn't an Easter egg to it where it's like, you know, an actual, yeah. Um, but because of that, it can be inferred that, Twisted Metal, at least at this point in time, probably won't be coming to PS5 very soon, but I could be wrong. Anyway, yeah, so what I'm trying to say is something that I notice is that the stuff that you would see in Astro's Playroom would commonly have a new thing regarding it in due time. Home, obviously, being that. Stars, I already talked about that. Digital collectibles, points, stars, yeah. Sony's answer in the metaverse, minus the crypto and NFT bullshit. Although in the notes I put bull crap, but you know, I could be vulgar if I want. Right, next thing. So, for anyone who is familiar with the cards system in PlayStation 5, oh wait, no, hold on. The eighth thing is Sony possibly realized that Home would be perfect on PS5, but are keeping Home a secret until they are ready to announce and release it. Not only that, but why else would they skip the PS4? It's because the PS4 would suffer from the same limitations as the PS3. Although the system is more powerful, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to suffer from the same limitations, because it's still used a hard drive and all that other stuff. Anyway, the last thing on the evidence. On the cards thing, so say for example you're playing Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and on the home menu you could choose a planet to go to. So like you could go to Ardolis, you know, like the pirate comet thingy, or the planet Ardolis. It'll zap you straight there, you know, stuff like that. So like an example would be, say there's a new minigame in home, and it'll send you straight to the area where it is and all that other stuff. Yeah. Anyway, the last thing I would like to talk about in terms of this home list, what I think they should do that hasn't been done in the beta. Now, I'm talking more specifically about stuff that wasn't a thing yet, or stuff that was technically a thing but wasn't expanded on. Well, to start off, should they decide to incorporate the digital collectibles into PlayStation Home with stars, for those who may remember, in 2007 it was stated that there would be a place called Hall of Fame, which would allow you to pick and choose which trophies and stuff you want to have displayed. That never came to fruition with the original home, but on PS5's version, I think that would definitely be a thing. And of course, with the digital collectibles, them being figurines and whatnot, yeah. But to add on to this, instead of it looking like the demonstration that we saw all those years ago, Sony could make it look almost exactly like Labo. But instead of the wall mural of puzzle pieces and stuff, it could be like the different displayed trophies that you want to have displayed, all neatly organized and stuff. Anyway, Discord integration. So if you're linked with Discord, you could get free items in PlayStation Home based on Discord. So like a Discord hat, maybe like the Discord logo as a like a mask. Not like a face mask. I'm talking about like an actual like mascot mask. And you could also get like Discord items for like your personal spaces and stuff. The next thing technically was already a thing, but I'm going to expand on that. So you were able to make custom outfits. So like maybe you wanted to dress up a certain way and you really like the outfit that you made and you want to save it. I want to add to that. So I'm going to bring this up as an example yet again. GTA Online and how you could make a custom outfit and then save it as an outfit, and then while you're out and about in free mode, you could change into whatever outfits you want freely through the interaction menu. They could do a very similar thing here in PlayStation Home where you can make a custom outfit, and then in gameplay, and I'm just going to say this, say the button to bring up the inventory is to press the touchpad. And what'll happen is it'll show the different tabs, and so you could scroll over to the outfits, and it'll let you choose whichever outfit that you want that has been customized by you. The fourth thing, crossover events. One example, Fortnite. Yeah, I know, weird, but let me explain. So, Fortnite, it has a tendency to cross over with other games. Like, you could have stuff in Fortnite that's from other games, like, you know, Destiny. But how about the other way around, where stuff from Fortnite is in PlayStation Home? So, like, you could have the different structures that you would make be made to look like, you know, maybe you could have like a brick stove or something like that, or maybe like a metal shed or something like that. I know that seems kind of basic, but whatever. Allowing users to have a direct impact on events in PlayStation Home. So, this is kind of a weird example, but I'm gonna get to something. So, there was a narrative questy, a sort of minigame called She, or Psy, I don't know, it's XI. I think it was either She or Psy, I don't remember. But, it would have this overarching plot that you were trying to stop someone from destroying PlayStation Home. Of course, that would never actually happen because it was all just narrative. It wasn't actually going to happen. But you would have a direct impact on it regardless. But in this case, say for example, and this example is kind of weird, but for example, players can vote for a specific event in a public space. Say there's an event where you need to defend home from an alien bad guy. You can either vote to make peace with him or fight him and defeat him with a weapon via a minigame. Those who participate will get items. That wasn't a really good example, but let me explain something else. Alright? So, a good example would be something simple like, say you're in a theoretical remake of Home Square, and in Home Square you were able to vote for what songs you wanted to hear in the dance floor area. And that's what I mean by having a direct impact on events in PlayStation Home. It doesn't necessarily have to be a major event. It could be something as simple as changing a song or something like that, or maybe voting on which player is the best outfit or something like that. Then finally, total game integration with popular games like Fortnite and GTA. A good example, Diamond Casino being brought into PlayStation Home. And with that, that is everything that I want to talk about regarding what I think can happen with Home, what I think will happen, when I think it's going to be happening, and how I think it's going to work. Now, I should say again, I don't know for sure Home is coming back, but there is so much evidence that suggests that it is coming back. It's not even funny, okay? But what I will say, however, is that, well, all we have to do is just wait and see. Because, like I said, we do have that supposed showcase coming up, and I believe it is going to be happening on the 8th of September. Because it's just likely at this point, alright? Anyway, with that being said, I hope you're all doing well, and again, sorry that the stream cut out a while ago. There was nothing I could do to handle that. It just happened. Maybe I should start streaming at a later time, because so far the stream is running well again. It's likely that the cause of it was something that I could try and stop, but the result would probably be someone yelling at me like, "They aren't the cause of this," when it is. You know who you are. Anyway, with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you all have a great night.